This podcast is sponsored by the Fireman Moving Company. The Fireman Moving Company is the official moving company of WKU Athletics. Not only can they be trusted to move all the coaches in and out of Western, but they can move you anywhere nationwide. The Fireman Moving Company is owned and operated by firemen and is founded by WKU alumni. If you are looking to move sometime soon, give them a call at 270-791-1755 and get yourself a free quote. Welcome to Topper Talk, your number one Western Kentucky athletics podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Moffitt, and I'm joined by co-host Tyler Bailey. Hilltopper Nation, whether it's happening on the hill or on the road, grab those red towels, stand up and cheer, because it's up next on Topper Talk. All right, welcome back, and thank you for downloading and listening to yet another episode of the Topper Talk podcast, your number one source for WKU sports news and information. We are the only year-round WKU podcast and the only WKU podcast that covers every sport and every athlete at Western Kentucky University. We are also a proud member of the College Huddle podcast community. And make sure you're following us on all of our social media platforms, Instagram and Twitter especially. Make sure you head over to our YouTube channel at Topper Talk Podcast. Make sure you subscribe over there. Check out every video episode that we release. Seems like they're gaining a little traction over there. I guess people like seeing our faces. I don't know, Tyler. What do you think? Ready to jump into a good bowl game recap episode?
Yeah, man, it's always good talking about a topper victory, especially over the people from the Sun Belt. So let's get into it.
Before that, though, we have to get caught up with our Red Towel wrap up, which catches us up with all the news we've missed since we last recorded. And since that was only 2 days ago, this one's going to be short and sweet. But Tyler, hit us with that Red Towel wrap up.
All right, so starting off, volleyball player Gabby Y is transferred to Western Michigan University.
Yeah, you hate to hear that. Coach Hudson has not had many of his players transfer out of the program, and he doesn't take a lot of transfers in either compared to some other places. But I want to say this is only like the fourth girl in 30 plus seasons that's transferred out of the program. And if you followed along with them this year, she's a middle blocker. Um, she only got to get on the court when we had multiple injuries. So obviously, I would have to say that her reasoning is probably for playing time. She probably wanted to go somewhere where she could get on the court. But because that just didn't seem like it was going to happen a lot here. So obviously, no ill feelings, and we wish her well and all the best of luck at Western Michigan.
Now, moving on, and tell me if you've heard this before, because I don't know if you had or not. But Armello Boone was named Freshman of the Week again in his young career.
Yeah, that is the fourth Freshman of the Week award for Armello Boone in 7 weeks that they have handed the award out. And you knew this was coming. He had a huge game against Tulsa. I forget how many points he had, but 12 rebounds. Just had a heck of a stat line. And that's just, what we've come to expect of him, nearly every game and every week. He's going to be in contention for this Freshman of the Week. And probably the Freshman of the Year award, unless he gets injured, which, knocking on wood, we're hoping that doesn't happen. But man, Armello is just a special talent, true freshman, and I can't wait to see him to continue to grow this season with the Hilltoppers.
And that concludes this short and sweet week's episode of the Red Towel Wrap Up. Moff, back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's dive into this New Orleans Bowl game recap. First, brought to you by Roof Girl. If you have a leaky roof, shingles detached, faded, or just blah, don't call any roofing company. Call Paula with Roof Girl. Locally owned and operated with over 6 years of experience and a proud WKU alumna. She will work with your insurance company. Give Roof Girl a call today at 270-392-4768 to set up a free inspection and quote. See her work by following Roof Girl on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, you're not just calling a roofing company, you're calling Paula, a person who cares for your roof. And a good roof is a roof you can forget about. Again, call Roof Girl at 270-392-4768 to get started today. Now, for the good stuff. WKU traveled down to New Orleans, Louisiana, over the weekend. They've been there for several days now and got to have fun checking out the city and the sights and sounds. But they were down there for a football game that happened just a couple hours ago as we're recording Tuesday night. This is still fresh on the mind, and it's a lot easier to talk about a win than it would be to be recapping a loss. So I'm glad we're here talking about good news. But they went down to New Orleans and faced the Southern Miss Golden Eagles of the Sun Belt Conference in the New Orleans Bowl. The announced attendance for the game was 16,693 people in attendance at the Superdome. Now, usually I don't talk about the betting line before the game, beyond the preview when we're talking about what it opened at and what the spread and over under all that's at. But the betting line for this game was kind of crazy over the last few days. Now it opened at 2.5 in favor of WKU. Several days ago when the betting lines opened, that line grew to as much as WKU favored by 5.5 over the next couple days. Earlier today, I was just randomly checking. I wonder where the line's at right now, and WKU was down to a 1.5 point favorite. And then I looked again a couple hours later, and we were an underdog. And by the time kickoff rolled around, Southern Miss was favored by 3. So I don't know what Vegas knew or what they thought they knew or why money was pouring in on Southern Miss, but there was an 8.5 point swing from the betting line from when it opened to the high point for Western and then the high point for Southern Miss. So, but obviously it didn't turn out in their favor as we jump into this recap. You could say this game was a tale of two halves for WKU, or you could say maybe it was a tale of two quarterbacks for WKU. We'll break that down obviously here in just a moment. In the first half, both defenses were outstanding. Southern Miss's defensive line was dominating the WKU offensive line, and the WKU and Rodney Tisdale could not get any consistent offense going. WKU did score the game's first points on a field goal after a botched punt attempt to make it 3-0 after they had really good, I think it was around the 10-yard line, starting field position. After they traded punts, USM scored the game's first touchdown to go up 7-3. WKU would later add a second field goal early in the second quarter to pull within 7-6. From there, the teams traded punts and turnovers, and then Southern Miss tacked on 2 more field goals to take a 13-6 lead going into halftime. WKU at the time was getting outgained by nearly 200 yards, and starting quarterback Rodney Tisdale for WKU had just gotten knocked out of the game. It looked like he might have been in concussion protocol, took a hard sack or a hit after he threw the ball, went down on his back, and was pulled from the game. Maverick McIver came in and finished the first half. And at the time, going into halftime, we didn't know coming back out, who's going to lead the team. Is it going to be Maverick or Rodney? But we knew that the team needed a spark. We were down 13-6. The offense I don't know, just a weird first half of the game. It just wasn't clicking, especially on first down. We just weren't efficient. 1.8 yards per play on first down was a stat that I heard the broadcast team rattle out there, and that's what it felt like. Felt like we were constantly behind the sticks. But Tyler, what were your thoughts on the first half of the game? I know, I feel like we've had this conversation before, the tale of two halves, but what were your thoughts on this one in particular?
It was just as you said, it's just a blah first half. I I remember hearing the announcers talking about. I think we were 0 for 6 on third down conversion. Then we finally got up to like 2 out of 9. Um, so yeah, I mean that's not good. It seems like yes, our defense was playing excellent. Southern Miss's defense was a bunch of hard hitters. And I don't know if Tisdale just obviously I don't know if he was comfortable. As being a freshman playing your first bowl game. He was 9 of 20 on passing. Just as this season started and kind of progressed, it seemed like we always had the slow starts and the slow starts. This may have been our slowest one of the season. We were vastly outgained by Southern Miss. And then thankfully, later that changed. But it kind of threw me back to whenever we played against ODU, and I mentioned a little bit of that to you off camera before we started recording. It kind of had shades of the ODU game. So I saw that it was a plus 300 money line for us going into halftime. I took it, and I felt good about that. But um, thankfully our defense didn't give up too much ground. They did give up some yards, but they still kept us they kept us close. Now, granted, we did have some great starting yards or starting positions in the first half, thanks to some muff punts and some other miscues. But thankfully, our defense really stepped up for us tonight in the first half.
Yeah, talking about, you talked about the third down conversions, us starting 0 for 6, um, really kind of just epitomizes that whole first half. Because here in a minute, when we get to the stats and we talk about what we ended on third downs, it means we ended really strong as far as converting on third downs, which is a strength of ours, and it was a weakness of Southern Miss's. So we hope that we could exploit that, and then that defensive line of Southern Miss, that they were getting pressure, they were hitting Rodney, just not letting him get comfortable. It felt like the whole first half was penalties, turnovers, and injuries. It was just ugly. It was sloppy. It was not good football. Unless you just like to watch a defensive brawl, because that's basically what it was. It was really good defensive football on both sides. But luckily, the second half opened up and got a little bit better. The second half started off with Maverick back at the helm to finish out the game. We would shortly find out. USM got the ball first and opened with a punt, and then WKU finally got the ball back, and it felt like we finally opened up the offense. Maverick hit Noah Myers over the middle, which I had been texting with a buddy. I said, "Man, if we got to get a tight end involved or a running back, out of the backfield over the middle." And it seemed like just minutes later, we hit Noah over the middle, a big 50, 60-yard catch and run reception. But as he was getting tackled, I think he was inside the 10, maybe inside the 5-yard line. He fumbles going to the turf. It rolls into the end zone. It ends up being a touchback. And man, that was kind of deflating. It felt like we were right there on the doorstep, getting the momentum back in our side, in our favor. But luckily for us, Southern Miss wasted the turnover and went 3 and out and punted back to us. WKU finally scored a touchdown to make the score 13-13 after a turnover on downs and then an interception thrown by WKU. USM would add a field goal to stretch the lead back to 16-13. Going into the fourth quarter, the teams traded punts to open the quarter. I said, and then the hometown kid. To me, it was a special moment because knowing that George Hart the third and his family's from down there in the Baton Rouge area, playing in what is probably his last college game, as far as I'm aware, playing in front of a large contingent of his family and friends that I know were at this ball game cheering him on. Western got close to the goal line via Maverick McIver's legs. Believe it or not, he was balling out there running. But George Hart III punched in a 1-yard touchdown to give WKU a 20-16 lead. And then after a Southern Miss punt, Marvis Parrish nailed the coffin shut with a 54-yard touchdown run down the sideline, which I didn't know he had that gear. He pulled away from some people and just stayed away, shook off a little arm tackle attempt and took it to the house, or took it to the crib, I guess. And then USM threw a pick on their next possession, and WKU was able to run the clock out with 3 straight George Hart runs. Again, hometown kid. Love to see that for him, getting the ball. Hopefully he held on to that game-winning ball. The season-ending victory left Western Kentucky with a 9-4 record to end the year. Tyson Helton is now 5-2 in bowl games, with bowl appearances in all 7 seasons that he has been at the helm. and WKU is now 5-0 versus former conference mate and foe Southern Miss. So man, it felt good to get that victory, get that monkey off our back, especially after last year's little I don't want to call it. It was a bad game against James Madison, but they were a good team. But it felt even extra worse because we had just played a bad game against Jacksonville State the game before that. So this season ending on a much higher note, I think that we are a fan base that appreciates bowl games more than some other fan bases that say they don't matter, they don't care, they don't really count for anything. Those teams on the field tonight wanted to win. They were both playing hard. They were hitting hard. People were getting hurt. Hopefully, all those guys that left the game get back to healthy as soon as possible. But Tyler, what were your thoughts on this bowl game victory versus USM before we jump into stats?
I mean, it was rightfully deserved. Now I'm gonna give props to some Southern Mississippi players. Top that Jamon Top, that dude is a beast. I mean he was hitting hard. Um, Also, I think it's Corey Myrick or whatever. He had one interception. You had that defensive end that had the other interception. Um, their defense is some fighters, and also their receivers and their quarterback. Um, he had some miracle throws, and somehow his guys came up with it. I mean, they got some studs over there. But you ask me, that just makes it even better to win. I guess you could call Southern Mississippi's dad now, 5-0. And it just feels really great to be able to go down there. Yes, I know some people say bowl games mean nothing, but kind of like what Randy and Terry Obie and them were talking about on the radio before game. Those two kinds of people are the people who say it don't matter and don't mean nothing. They're the ones who don't make it to the bowl games, and if they do, they're the ones that don't win the bowl games. Because any chance you got to go out on the field and play is a chance that you're going to relish. Don't matter if it's for whatever trophy, the Duke's Mayo Bowl, the Pop Tart Bowl. It don't matter. It's all about playing the game that you love, and for these kids, this is something they're going to remember, and it just means more to them. So I'm always going to take a bowl game that we're in, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to cheer on tops. And to win it just makes it even better.
Yeah, and it was really fitting that Maverick McIver got to come in and be the one that helped pull us to victory. Ended up being the bowl game MVP after the game was over and they awarded the MVP trophy. It went to him. He obviously started the season as our starting quarterback and opened up the season with a couple really good games against Sam Houston and North Alabama. But we would later find out after the FIU game that he had been playing injured through a pectoral and a shoulder injury. And that's when Rodney Tisdale took over the starting job going against Louisiana Tech. And Rodney came in and was effective and efficient in winning ball games. And by the time Maverick got healthy again, Helton said, "No, we're going to keep rolling with the hot hand." I think Rodney's deserved the right to continue starting and not lose his job. And Maverick he took it like a grown man, with a lot of respect and a lot of support for Rodney and for the team and putting we before me. And that really showed tonight when, the opportunity came back around. Rodney Tisdale got knocked out of the game. Maverick McIver came in, and then he went down and scored a rushing touchdown. It was interesting. If you were watching the broadcast, the first person off the bench to greet him, to congratulate him on that rushing touchdown, was Rodney Tisdale. And that's brothers right there. They've been in the quarterback room, they've been in meeting rooms, training together, teaching each other the playbook, making sure they know what to be looking for defenses and etc. And that truly made it, a special moment for both of those and kind of a full circle moment for Maverick McIver to come into the game and help propel us to victory. So looking at our leading stat getters, Maverick McIver was the leading passer. He was 12 out of 19 with 199 passing yards. He did have one interception. They credited him with the fumble that Noah Myers had. Don't really understand that, but when I was looking at the stat sheet, I was like, Maverick had a fumble? I was like, no, Noah Myers had a fumble. But either way, potato, doesn't really matter. It was a fumble. Then he also had one rushing touchdown. Marvis Parrish was our leading rusher, 7 rushes for 65 yards and 1 touchdown. Maverick McIver was our second leading rusher, 8 rushes, 48 yards, and 1 touchdown. And then George Hart III had 8 rushing attempts for 28 yards and 1 touchdown. Matt Henry was our leading receiver. He had 7 receptions for 126 yards. And then Noah Myers had 2 receptions for 65 yards, although he did have a fumble on the one that was 54 yards. But it was still a heck of a reception, a heck of a run, and fighting to get those extra yards. Just got a little loose with the ball there at the end. It does happen, though. But Tyler, what about these offensive guys? I know most of that was going to be second half stats that were added to the column because the first half was kind of ugly. But what about these guys? And did anyone else stand out to you in the game?
Well, just think about it, if we would have played this good in the first half. I mean, this wouldn't even been a ball game. Um, but I hate to see Lavelle Wright go down. He is a workhorse. He's big and powerful. I wish he could have been out there as well, but he did have 5 rushes for 11 yards where he had to exit the game. Jarius Mackey had 3 receptions, 29 yards. Musa Berry, he had 2 receptions for 32 yards. Um, Katie Hutchinson, he didn't really have as not as good as he wanted to. Um, but I mean, the guys, our stat getters, did all that in just one half, and I mean, it played a perfect half if you ask me. Yes, there was some fumbles and the interception, but these guys were hungry. These guys wanted it, and man, just my hat goes off to them.
Yeah, you talk about Katie Hutchinson not playing his normal game. Yeah, I almost felt sorry for him because we kept calling those screens and those tunnel screen passes, and he was just running into a wall of black jerseys every single time he got the ball. So it wasn't anything he was doing; it was just good defense by Southern Miss, and they really, I said this to a couple people during the game. They didn't play like a team that was the 102nd worst rush defense in the nation. Out of 136 teams, they're in the bottom 34. They played much more solid than that tonight. Obviously for the season, that's not where they landed, but tonight they were just an aggressive, getting in the backfield, filling gaps, not letting you break many runs until we had that big Marvis Parrish run. They had slowed us down on run plays, the entire night. So hats off to Southern Miss for making the game difficult, especially the first half. Now, looking for the defensive stat leaders, the leading tackler was Jalen Wester. He had 12 tackles, 7 of those were solo. He had 2 tackles for loss and 1 sack. Then Anthony Brackenridge, he had 11 total tackles, 6 of those were solo. He had 1 tackle for loss and 1 sack. And then Jalen Lewis had 6 tackles, 3 of those were solo. He had half a tackle for loss, and he had the game sealing interception. And I have to say, man, the defense, we had some guys flying around. Brackenridge was making plays, Wester was making plays, Jalen Lewis was making plays. The defense played lights out. They kept us in this ball game all through that first half when the game could have gotten out of hand when we weren't scoring points, but they kept us within a touchdown and let us be right there. And eventually we picked it up, thank goodness, because man, the defense, quite frankly, won this game, in my opinion. But Tyler, tell me about the defense, what you liked, and who stood out to you.
One thing I liked was the defense. The camera kind of panned on Ward and and Brackenridge, and it just seemed like they were really chopping it up with Southern Miss. Really trying to get inside their head. I do think that penalty that we got whenever Ward was getting up off the guy that he tackled. I don't agree with that call. Granted, there at the end it didn't matter, but I just like that the defense was out there. That they were going to do what they was going to do. They were going to let them know that they was there. And our guys really played great defense. But yeah, I'd like to say, you mentioned Jalen Lewis. He had that INT. Um, then you had Kent Robinson. He had 7 total tackles, 5 solo. one pass defended. Dave Herrard, he had three totals, three solo. He almost had that strip sack. I wish he would have. The dude was just right there, had the hand on it, and Braxton was able to get it back from him. Um, Machiavelli, he had three total tackles, two solo, and he also had one tackle for loss. Jakeem Fletcher, he had a half tackle for loss, three total, one solo. And once you get from Jalen Wester and Anthony Brackenridge, we all kind of group in there together. You got Kent Robinson with seven, Jalen Lewis with six, uh, Eugene with five, Karan Hayward with four, Harper Holloman with four. From there, it just goes to three, two, and one. But I mean, yeah, our defense was all over the place, especially those top two, Jalen and Anthony. Just seemed like every time the ball was thrown or the ball was caught, a runner was going, they were there to wreak havoc, and I'm glad it was because you're right. This defense really kept us in the game.
Yeah, the defense was hitting hard and letting it be known, man. There were a couple of kids that took hits, and I was like, "Oh Lord, that was is he going to get back up?" Good question. And usually they did. They only had to haul a couple people off on a stretcher tonight, right? But hopefully those guys are okay. Looking at the special teams guys, John Cannon was 2 out of 2 on field goals, 3 out of 3 on extra points. And then Cole Maynard has 6 total punts on the game for a 45.7 yard average for the consensus All American. He had a long of 56. He had three that were punted inside the 20. Tyler, what about the special teams guys, man? Just doing what they do.
Our special teams is a lot better than Southern Miss special team. Cole Maynard. I do wish he wouldn't have had to be out there six times, but he was. Went out there and flipped the field or gave us great defensive position starting off. John Cannon, he was just being out there automatic. 3 or 3 on extra points, two or two on field goals, 100%. I mean, you can't get much better than that, can you?
No, pretty steady and solid night for the special team guys. Now, we're going to jump in and look at our keys to victory and recap those and how we did. Tyler, your very first one was limit the chunk plays. How'd we do on those?
Well, the Chapman wide receiver had a long of 35. Most of those would be later called back because of some offensive penalty. But still, the player was able to get behind us. So, I mean, we did all right with that. We did good. We didn't do bad, but I wouldn't give it a grade on that one.
Yeah, I think we did good as well. There were a couple of them, but like you said, there were a couple more that were called back because of obvious holding penalties. And again, I'm not going to start on the penalties thing, but golly, it just seems like the refs are not calling holding out on the edge anymore. But it is what it is. The game obviously was fine and in our favor, but I'd agree. Limit the chunk plays. I think we did a pretty good job. My very first key to victory was ground and pound. I wanted us to, and I thought we would lean on the run game pretty heavily coming in, knowing that Southern Miss was number 102 in run defense in the nation. And quite frankly, we never really established a good ground game until late in the game when Marvis Parrish busted open a couple runs there at the end. He had a 54 yarder. Then George Hart started to reel off a couple little runs. So I wouldn't say we didn't really lean on the run as much as I thought we would. We didn't have as much success there as I thought we would. So that key to victory did not hit for me. Tyler, your second key to victory was limit turnovers. How'd we do?
Well, we lost the turnover battle 3-1. So we didn't do good, but I mean, thankfully we was able to pull out the dub. So it's all really matters on that one.
Yeah, same for me. Limit turnovers was my second key to victory as well. And you can't, I mean, generally, you don't go to many games and have two interceptions and a fumble, especially a fumble going in basically to the end zone and end up coming out ahead in the score. So it was, huge that we were able to overcome those turnovers. They didn't turn into points for Southern Miss. We were able to get the ball back and hopefully and thankfully minimize the damage on those. Tyler, your third key to victory was get pressure on the quarterback. How did we do on that one?
Well, I mean, we did end up with three sacks on the night. We had seven tackles for loss. Um, but getting to the QB, well, I mean, we did good, but the dude was on his A game. I mean, it don't matter if you're back there and you was hitting him or you was stripping the ball from him. He was going to get it out. And he had like two plays that I remember just off the top of my head where he threw it and somehow their dude wound up with it. So like it was magic. But I mean, we didn't do great, but we did all right.
And I have to say that quarterback for Southern Miss, he had come over from Marshall. I had heard his name for a long time, being friends with some Marshall guys. But man, when he threw a deep ball, he had the prettiest, tightest spiral. I don't know if you noticed that, but man, his deep ball, man, it was picture perfect. I don't know, it just looked different. Like it was a tight spiral, man. Like he had a good ball that he threw, but luckily he wasn't super accurate. So that played to our favor. My third key to victory is what I wanted us to go out and be loose and have fun. Similar to how we did last time we played in the New Orleans Bowl when Austin Reed and Dalvin Smith and those guys just went out there and lit up the scoreboard. Um, and honestly, I feel like this game started out kind of tight, kind of the opposite of that. You know, we were just really reserved, couldn't get the flow of the offense going, playing behind the sticks, punting a lot, turning the ball over. Um, Second half got better. It was almost a change of guard, and the offense was smoother when Maverick came in. But we kind of got away from the trick plays that we were running in the first half. We ran a different offense. We let Maverick get out there and make quicker decisions and get the ball to open people down the field. And luckily, that's what kind of spurred us to victory in this game. So I wouldn't say that we played loose and had fun, but at the end of the game, we still got to raise the trophy. So a dub's a dub. Tops win, you win, right? Jumping into the jumping into the key indicators. Looking at first downs was in favor of USM 21-18. On third down conversions, mentioned this earlier. WKU started 0 of 6 but ended 9 of 17, so better than 50%. So ended up 9 for 11 after that 0 for 6 start. So yes, really solid second half. That difference when Maverick came in, all of a sudden we started converting third downs. And USM was 7 out of 20. And it felt like in the first half, it felt like they were 6 for 6. So they really struggled to convert third downs to finish the game. And they only had 3 points in the second half. So obviously the defense stepped up and was doing something right. Total yards in the game, again, another surprise with how the first half went. We were being outgained by nearly 200 yards. WKU finishes with 422 yards. Southern Miss had 377, so outgained them by a good 50 there. Turnovers, we know, favored Southern Miss 3-1. Penalties, WKU had 8 penalties for 74 yards. USM had 12 for 100. And then time of possession, WKU had the ball for 31 minutes and 24 seconds, while Southern Miss had the ball for 28 minutes and 36 seconds. And all of that tells the tale of an 11-point WKU victory, a solid victory, one that I guess in the first half you could say maybe you were like, gosh, are we going to get it going? But once that second half got going and Maverick got pushing us down the field, it never felt in doubt to me. It felt really good, like we were just gonna step on the gas and pull away from, and that's exactly what we did. Tyler, let's jump into some grades for this game. What do you have for the offense versus Southern Miss?
Well, see, I mean, like I said, it's a tale of two halves, tale of two quarterbacks. I can't give an A as much as I really want to because the first half was atrocious. It just wasn't our game. Oh gosh. So I'm going. The second half definitely an A plus. Uh, I'm gonna go with a. I'm not gonna give him a C because it was a great win. It was great come from behind win. So I'm gonna give him a B on that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them a B as well. I mean, they were just short of 30 points, and obviously you can't do this, but if that Noah Myers fumble doesn't happen going into the end zone, we're punching that in. I mean, it feels like we're punching that in, and we're well over 30 points at that point with those points. But you can't do that, and I'm kind of like you. I'm going to average it out to the first half, and the second half being kind of average to really good, and I'm going to give the offense a B as well. What do you have for the defensive grade?
Defense is gonna get an A plus in my book. Yes, they gave up 377 yards, only forced one turnover, but I mean these guys, like we've said earlier in the podcast, these guys kept us in the game. Without them, we probably wouldn't have won this game. So they stepped up, and I'm gonna give them an A plus.
Yeah, you're gonna win a lot of ball games holding people to 16 points. And again, the yards not really all that concerning because if you've heard Rick Bowie and Tyson Helton talk enough, like, hey, go ahead, get all the yards you want between the 20s. Getting the ball in the end zone or kicking it through the uprights is what is gonna win the game. Yeah, and when you only hold them to 3 points in the second half, um, yeah, again, that's gonna win a whole lot of ball games and it won this game. So the defense definitely gets an A from me. Tyler, what about your grade for the special teams?
Real quick though, we are also third nation in red zone defense. So booyah. Um for special teams, I won't give them an A plus as well. I mean, they came out there, they did what they supposed to do. They flipped the field, they kicked the ball through the uprights, and they end up getting us points or giving Southern Miss bad starting position.
Yeah, special teams gets an easy A from me as well. Those guys have been the most consistent unit on this team from day one. They go out, they do their jobs, they do it really well. So hard to give them anything else but an A. What about your grade for coaching in this game?
Now, see, this is difficult. Well, it's not difficult. It's actually refreshing because typically, we have a good first half. You know, our coaches want to continue doing the exact same thing in second half. The other opposing team, they think of some ways to slow us down or stop us. It becomes a real good game then. This time it was the exact opposite. Uh, our defensive coach, our defensive coordinators really got in there, really thought of ways to definitely stop them, and our offense really just kind of expanded their book a little bit, and so I'm gonna give the coaching staff an A in this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a tad bit lower just because the first half was just kind of I don't know, it just the offense was never really flowing that well. It seemed like we didn't have an answer for the USM pressure. So I'm kind of looking at it the same way I look at the offensive grade. It just never was fluid in the first half, and then the second half, it was like a flip switch. Then all of a sudden, we were just pushing the ball, getting chunk plays, first down plays, third down conversions, etc. So I'm not going much lower. I'm gonna give them a B. I think it was still a really solid effort by all three phases and a heck of a good victory over what was a really good Southern Miss team. So I'm really proud of everyone involved. Tyler, what about your overall grade for this victory?
I did throw a B in there. The rest of them was A, so I'm gonna have to go with A in this one. Plus, it was a bowl victory, so A for me.
Yeah, I'm going with an A as well. I mean, I just think it was a solid victory, even with the slow start in the first half, and we had to change quarterbacks and then come in, and that just kind of jump started the offense. Like you said, similar to that famous Toaster Bowl. Thankfully, we weren't down 28-0 and needed last second heroics and blocked field goals to win the game like we did in the famous Toaster Bowl because that one was bad on your heart. And I'm getting older. I don't need all that. I'm getting gray hairs. So this was a easier victory to cruise to. Second half, we got going and finally put it away. So that's kind of what I like to see in these bowl games. Now, Tyler, who would you peg as your player of the game?
You over there talking about getting gray hairs. I've had gray hairs. But shoot, look at my beard. My head is gray. I'm gonna give it to Maverick McIver on this one. He came in the second half and really just took control. And I feel like from there the offense really loosened up and play calling and everybody looked like they were just having fun.
Yeah, same for me. I thought it would be a more run heavy offense this game. And I guess when we realized that wasn't going to work, and then we turned to Maverick after Rodney got hurt, it was nice to see him come back in. And it was fitting to see him come in and lead the team to a comeback victory and lead us to a bowl game victory. Um, the fifth in the last 7 years under Tyson Helton. the 12th bowl game in the last 14 years, and we've been bowl eligible 14 of the last 15 years, if I'm not mistaken. I think I'm quoting Todd Stewart correctly in all of those phases, but just a lot of consistency at the bowl games, getting to bowl games, playing in bowl games, and winning bowl games. Which, again, I know a lot of fan bases think doesn't matter, aren't important, but like you said earlier, they're either not making bowl games or they're not winning bowl games. Because if they were, they'd be like, man, it's pretty nice to go to a nice bowl game location down in Florida, over in Hawaii, the Bahamas, down in New Orleans, and play in a nice location against a good opponent and get a victory. Doing all those things is pretty nice, and we're still done with football before Christmas. So, man, I think it was just a solid ending to the season of games being played. Obviously, we've still got transfer portal news, which, if it hasn't already started, I'm sure names will start leaking and entering tonight after the bowl game has now been completed. I'm sure we're going to start seeing some more transfer portal entries, and we'll be tracking that and keeping up with that and updating it on Twitter as they happen or as we see them announced. So if you see one announced that we don't see, make sure you tag us in it so we can get that shared and added to our list. And then, we've got a few months till spring ball, but now we kind of pivot to our basketball centered coverage of the season. We got from now till the end of March, early April to cover basketball, and then we're back into spring ball and talking about depth charts and the Feel Still magazine again, and just how quickly the years and the seasons fly by, man. But I'm really looking forward to it. Really enjoyed this football season. A lot of our goals were met that we set and that are the expectation every single year. Obviously, we fell one game short of the Conference USA championship game, getting to make an appearance. I hate that. I really, I want to get over that hump just as bad as anyone else. As much as I want to defend Helton and love him and enjoy him as our coach, we got to get over that hump eventually. But man, I still love what he does do, and that's win a lot of ball games. We're competitive. We play a fun brand of football. He's a great leader of our program and of our young men. Doesn't have any, there's no crazy issues going on in the locker room that you're hearing about. Or if there is issues, there was one or two this year. He gets the issues out of the locker room. There's a couple guys not on this team that were not at this bowl game because they were problems. And we're not going to talk about them. We're not going to name them, but the rare times that they do happen, he takes care of them. And that's the kind of leader I want in the program, setting a standard and a culture and an expectation. So, really enjoyed this football season. Obviously, not looking forward to the portal half of players deciding to leave or test their options. But on the flip side of that means we're going to sign some players out of the portal. We're going to go find new talent and new people looking for new homes and new opportunities, and we're going to bring them here to the Hill and get them here. Over the Christmas break and into spring ball, and look forward to seeing them on the Hill come March and April. So really looking forward to that and our basketball coverage that we will continue over the coming months. So Tyler, hit us with your final words and take us on out of here.
Yeah, every year we the goal is to win the conference championship, and I know hopefully this next season that's finally this season that'll be the season that we finally get over that hump. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna throw a little shade here, Sun Belt. They always think they're so good. I mean the Troy lost to Jack State. Right now they are 1-3 against us with one more matchup on the schedule, and that's Coastal Carolina versus La Tech. Um, that's not a good record for Sun Belt versus Conference USA. So suck it, Sun Belt. But yeah, you're right. We're closing the book on this football season. It's been a great football season. It's been a fun football season. There's been highs, there's been lows. Um, and for all the players that they stayed with us. Um, I appreciate what you do for the team, appreciate what you do for the community and for Western. Um, for the players that are leaving in the transfer portal, I hope the best for you. I really do. I hope you go somewhere. I hope you ball out and shine. And if you want to come back, I mean, the Western fans will be here with open arms, welcoming you back. Um, but yeah, you're right about to pivot into basketball season. That's going to be fun. It should be a pretty good season for them. It is so far right now. Hopefully everybody stays healthy and they continue to ball out and win. Hopefully we host or we're able to hoist the conference championship in that down Alabama. But um, just crazy that's football season's already over. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody. Christmas coming up in 2 days, and then tomorrow's Christmas Eve. Um, Hope everybody has a good one. Spends time with people that will spend times with your people, and hope everybody just has fun. But with that, Moff, who has a birthday than us?
Nobody, buddy. You know it.
Go Tops.
Go Tops. Later, guys.
You win, we live, baby. Woo!
See ya.
See you.